This video records a simulation imagining world decision makers using Smartsettle Infinity to create a Gaza Marshall Plan. We present the technology as powerful, but that will depend on collaboration among the stakeholders. The simulation imagined the stakeholders in these 6 groups. We are going to follow the simulation from the point of view of the Palestinians, while the other groups are played by AI. Negotiations begin with the creation of a single negotiating framework, a shared draft agreement outlining all the issues to be resolved. This framework evolves throughout the process as stakeholders refine issues, propose options, and adjust preferences until it finally culminates in a comprehensive Gaza Marshall Plan. In our simulation, 10 broad categories were identified. A commitment to a ceasefire was a critical starting point. Common ground and several distinct options were defined together with an estimated budget for each element. The simulation assumed that the parties had already agreed on a cost-sharing formula. With a comprehensive framework defined, each party modeled their own preferences within the Smartsettle Infinity platform. Much of what you see in this simulation was generated by AI. In a real-life negotiation, the Palestinians would work with skilled facilitators to model their preferences. This is the private point of view of the Palestinians, where they model their own preferences. Private preferences are kept confidential by the system. The negotiating range on each issue here is oriented so that the most preferred options to the Palestinians are on the right-hand side. They are ordered from most important at the top to least important at the bottom. With the Palestinians required to pay only a relatively small portion of the costs, the importance of the cost issue is relatively low. The non-linear shape of the curve indicates that it becomes more difficult for the Palestinians to pay as the amount increases. Palestinians have assigned one importance point to the negotiating range from 0 to 100 million. This establishes the importance scale for all the other issues. The most important issue, worth 60 points, is prisoner exchange and refugee resettlement. This satisfaction graph shows 6 alternative outcomes ranked by the Palestinian leadership. Their least preferred option, scoring -20, is international support resettlement. Several other options are much better, with the most preferred option being simultaneous complete release at 40 points. Recognition of sovereign borders and reconstruction and economic revival are also among the most important issues. Commitment to ceasefire is also very important, but this issue is assigned fewer points because the negotiations have already assumed that a ceasefire will happen. The only issue about a ceasefire is how it will be implemented. There are 6 options in order of importance from phased peace implementation to immediate full ceasefire. On the right side is where the Palestinians keep track of alternative outcomes. There is nothing yet on the table for all parties to see. The Palestinian leadership have created 5 private reference packages to help them understand their own preferences and also for use in the bargaining phase about to begin. The ratings of these packages are determined by the individual importances assigned to the options that make up the package. The package least preferred to the Palestinians, worth only 7 points, is named status quo. An outcome at this end of the scale would be totally unacceptable. The Palestinians will walk away from the table before accepting anything worse than their walkaway package. Their goal is a solution worth at least 180 points. The package named Target would be quite acceptable to the Palestinians. However, the Palestinians decide to start by proposing something more optimistic. When they do so, the optimistic proposals of the other parties also appear on the table. Among those proposals, the one submitted by people at the heart of the conflict is most preferred, and the Palestinians readily accept that package. Their acceptance is indicated by a secret yellow dot. Other parties are unaware that the Palestinians have accepted Package 3. The Palestinians also accept Package 4. There are more packages acceptable to the Palestinians, but before accepting any of those, the Palestinians ask Smartsettle for a suggestion. Several suggestions appear, and some are accepted. Smartsettle will declare an agreement if at the end of a session all parties have accepted the same package. Unfortunately, no agreement is reached in Session 1. In Session 2, the Palestinians propose their concession package. In Session 3, the Palestinians put their target package on the table, but they do so in secret. This is done by publishing the package anonymously. The target package is disguised as a typical suggestion. This strategic move is known as a masquerade. This technique helps to remove bias that would prevent other parties from accepting such a package. At the close of Session 3, the Palestinians are thrilled when Package 15 is declared the baseline agreement, surpassing their target expectations. The excitement is palpable, but with their training on Infinity's ability to uncover hidden value, an improvement is requested. Smartsettle generates Package 23, which becomes the final agreement after all parties confirm that it is even better than the baseline. This moment highlights the transformative power of the Smartsettle Infinity process, uniting parties and achieving surprising outcomes beyond their expectations. The improvement is worth 9 points more to the Palestinians than the baseline agreement. And in fact, if we were to also view this negotiation from each other party's perspective, we would see that the improvement was worth a grand sum of $6 billion overall. This optimized consensus would cost an estimated $24 billion, but the mutual benefit to all stakeholders is 7 times greater at $171 billion. Now let's review how that happened by examining the process in satisfaction space. This graph assumes that a comprehensive single negotiating framework has been created, and each party's preferences are well represented, known only to the Smartsettle Infinity neutral site. The stage is set for the integrative bargaining phase of a Smartsettle negotiation. The animation here will show how the bargaining phase works for 2 parties, Palestine and Israel in this case. Palestine wants an outcome as close to the top as possible, and Israel wants an outcome that is as far to the right as possible. Clearly, they will need to settle for something less than that, but each party will not agree to anything worse than the status quo, so we've labeled that point as 0-0. In game theory, the status quo is also called the Nash equilibrium, if it's a place where decision-makers get stuck and have no incentive to move to a better place, even if that better place exists. This is especially serious if the Nash equilibrium is dangerous. The status quo levels, together with the efficiency frontier, define a zone of possible agreement. But each party also has a minimum level of satisfaction that they would be willing to accept. These levels define a zone of likely agreement. The Smartsettle process proceeds as follows. Parties are encouraged to exchange optimistic proposals that represent somewhat more than they would consider fair, so that they still have some room to concede, but not so much more that the other party is offended. In this example, neither party would accept the other party's optimistic because they are both outside the zone of possible agreement. But Smartsettle can generate suggestions that fall between the optimistic proposals. Some of these packages fall in the zone of possible agreement and may be acceptable to the parties. The suggestions most likely to become an agreement are the ones that are above the target levels. Parties reach a baseline agreement at the end of a session if they have all accepted the same package. Finally, Smartsettle generates an improvement to suggest a fair solution on the efficiency frontier. This last step invokes our signature algorithm Maximize the Minimum Gain, providing parties a way to escape the Nash equilibrium and reach a fair and efficient solution on the efficiency frontier. The Smartsettle process works for almost any formal negotiation that you can imagine between any number of parties. When adding a third party like the West, the efficiency frontier becomes a surface. This has the potential to tremendously complicate the negotiations. But with Smartsettle, the parties never see most of this. It's all under the hood. Each party needs only to focus on their own point of view, and their experience in a multi-party negotiation is not much different than with only 2 parties. The final outcome is an optimal consensus in which the blanks of the single negotiating framework are filled in to become the final agreement to be implemented. But the key lesson here is not the outcome, but rather the consensus-building process. Let's put this to work in the real conflict. Peace is within reach. We invite decision-makers, stakeholders, and supporters to help make this vision a reality, building a future where Gaza is rebuilt, restored, and truly at peace. Thanks for watching.